We're talking stress and anxiety, and in one of my shorts recently I mentioned how you can use the NLP, neuro-linguistic programming concept of an anchor, to help chip away at your stress and anxiety response. So, excuse me, the idea of an anchor is that it is something that happens, a stimulus in the environment, that whether you want to or not, you respond. So in the short I gave an example of there's that person that you really like, and when they come into the room you smile, regardless, you just smile. That's an anchored response, because you don't have to go, oh, it's Chris, so when Chris is here I feel better, so I'm going to, how could I display that? Well, I could give him a, no, you just go straight to the smile. So that's an anchored response. It's like a shortcut or a hack. And you can imagine it works the other way as well, that somebody in the work environment comes in, you don't get on particularly well with them, and without having to think about it, your shoulders go tight and suddenly you feel a real pressure to perform at a certain level or behave in a certain way or not say something or definitely say something. And almost it takes a lot of conscious will to not respond in that way, because it's in effect hardwired. So it's a hack for your body. It's a shortcut from stimulus to response. And of course, these can be used in either direction. You can use it for good, or you can have it implanted for bad. But there is a way to get around it, which is called collapsing anchors. So basically we're going to collapse the response that we don't want, and we're going to replace with a response that we do. So we're going to end up with a new anchor. These are really effective. They're really effective, and it's even to the point where NLP therapists can see that one of their clients is in a particular state, and they can reach across with consent and anchor the emotion that they want. And it could be perhaps a really resourceful state, a really positive state. So to give you an example of how this works, if you are, excuse me, feeling incredibly stressed and anxious, as we've talked about in the past, having somebody tell you to calm down is probably the most annoying and possibly ineffective thing that they could do, because it's too big a gap from where you are, stressed and anxious, to Zen calm. It's too big a step for you to remove yourself from the situation and all those natural anchored responses that you have to whatever the environmental trigger was. I'm wearing my dog lead over my shoulder rather than having it in a pocket, so I look like anyway, sorry, just in case you wonder, I'm not part of a brigade. So for me, I had a tendency to get grumpy with people when I was driving. I wouldn't say it was full-on road rage, but I definitely had some judgments about the skill level of the people I was surrounded by on the road. So I decided it might be something that it wasn't a huge part of my life, so I didn't feel a massive need to remove it. So it wasn't a hugely loaded experiment, basically. So a good place for me to start, and this might be a good place for you to start, so that you can have access to bigger stuff. So I knew that I could get grumpy when I was driving, not as grumpy as somebody I knew who bit their steering wheel, which seems like a fantastic response. But also that it was quite a stretch for me to get the Zen-like calm that I would prefer to have while I'm driving. It seemed too big a jump. So I put in an intermediate step, which was mildly irritated. And the way it works is you are going to anchor, physical anchor, each emotional state. So in my case, I close my eyes because that just allows us to focus in on the stimulus that we want and the feelings that we want. And I imagine that I was incredibly angry with somebody on the road. I saw the images in my head. I felt the physical responses. I tightened my jaw and my knuckles and had those words that I would shout bubbling around in my head ready to go. And when I was absolutely at my peak, I reached out a finger and I pressed it firmly onto my arm. And then we do what they call in NLP a break state, which you smell the coffee basically. It's do anything. You make a yelping noise, you blow out some air really forcefully, you smell the coffee, to get out of that locked in state of frustration. And then I closed my eyes and I went back in and I, forgive me, I did that 3 times on the anger. So I anchored it 3 times on exactly the same spot. Then I did my break state and went for mildly irritated. So, I wish, maybe they're having a bad day. Gosh, well, I wish they hadn't done that to me. I did that 3 times, anchoring directly below. There's my blazingly angry, and there's my irritated. 3 of those in exactly the same spot, break state, and then I added in Zen calm, which was peace and love. They probably need the space more than me. If they were concerned about my feelings, then they wouldn't have done it in the first place. So clearly they're not in a place to have access to that level of thinking today. And I did that 3 times and anchored that at point number 3. And what's fantastic about anchors is when you go back to the physical anchor and push it, you can recreate the instant feelings. And when I do this with people in my sessions, I load it to ask them which they notice first, the thoughts or the feelings that are associated with the anchor that we've just established. This is often for one that we're building on creativity or calm or authenticity, something like that, which is quite a useful, powerful thing for them to have. And as a rule, in my experience of working with this, 100% of the time, they've been able to recreate the sensation because of the anchor that we've put in place. So having done that, we're going to clump those 3 senses, feelings, ideas very, very quickly. So I tap my angry, immediately tap my mild, and then go calm, cascading it down. Feel each of them and instantly allow it to move on to the next level downwards. So for stress and anxiety, my hesitation around stress and anxiety as a collapsed anchor is that you may have to put yourself into a situation where you go to your stress response. And I wouldn't mind betting a really good way to build this would be to build the Zen calm, to build the level of mild stress, that background noisy type of sensation, build those first, so that when you establish your stress anchor, you have the option to immediately start diffusing it. The challenge is that we don't want to blur them. So you want to establish the safety anchors really strongly. And that could be even that you build it up over a couple of days. So you go calm anchor. Oh, I'm really noticing that I'm calm. I'm going to add it to my anchor. I'm going to do my visualization, my deep breathing. Oh, wow, I'm feeling really calm. Add it to the anchor. You can do this anytime you want. You can just stack good stuff on top of your safe, calm anchor. Then, if you were willing to have a try at it, you could create a sense of mild anxiety just by thinking about those things that set you off. Or you could do it when you notice, oh, geez, I can feel it coming. I need to be aware. Add that as the second anchor. And then when we get that third full blown, we've got that. Anchor it, but collapse it. Each time, just go top finger, middle finger, down. When you get the calm sensation, and you will if you've set those anchors up strongly, notice, breathe, reinforce, and 2 things will happen. You will have that available to you if you have a stress and anxiety response again in the future. But also, it's going to allow you space to not go there in the first place. because the natural cascade, and to go back to my example where I was trying to work with some, not road rage, but something along those lines, is I was driving with a friend in the car and he looked across and he said, "You keep sighing." And I went, "Do I?" That is awesome. He thought I was sighing because something was going on. I took that. I'm sighing because it was my Zen level of resignation to the fact that there are a lot of people out there who weren't able to follow the rules of the road or to have the awareness of other people using the road. So to me, sighing while I was driving was a real win and a really nice way for me to have collapsed those anchors down to something manageable and something I would prefer to have. So if you've had a look at the stuff that I put out, a lot of the shorts I've had are just short-term hacks to buy you a little space. That's when you then add something in like collapsing an anchor or establishing a calm anchor, which is where you just do that one. And if you go, okay, when I have to get up and speak, I know it's going to be anxiety provoking, but I've already established, it could be this, it could be pinching those two together, could be your calm anchor, and then you could just do that and hold that calm while you're doing your presentation. It's not going to be too distracting. It's out of the way. You can slide your hand in your pocket perhaps, just have it at your side. So it's, again, using that imagination rather than imagining everything going wrong. You imagine everything going right, feel the calm, anchor it, and use it. So one of the things about anchors is the more you use them, the stronger they become, which is why that person at work that sends you in that direction, it's the repetition day after day after day. It's why that person that you love having in your life makes you smile, because the power of the initial emotional setup and the repetition on a regular basis have made it a really powerful. So have a go at that. If you've got any ideas or questions, pop them in the comments because we might be able to just answer them. Have a look at NLP. It's incredibly powerful tools, but good luck at chipping away at that stress anxiety response.